All right, welcome everyone to Virtually Incorrect with Gunter. I am your host Gunter, and thank you for joining me. Before I introduce my guest tonight, I'd like to take a moment to mention a few people. Big thanks to the Riftmax folks, Mike Arms, Kane, and Flake for running the show and for this awesome set that they built. Really love this. It's amazing. Thanks. I also want to thank Roger Anthony Essig for allowing me to use his beautiful art seen behind me now. I love it. His art is beautiful, so thanks. And of course, thanks to the guests. Everyone in the virtual audience here with us. And everyone watching via the stream or YouTube. Virtually Incorrect is a VR discussion show where each week I select a few stories from the Oculus subreddit and share them with the panelists that will be on that week's show. The tone is meant to be semi-serious and have a focus on where VR is and where we want it to go, as well as how VR is being done incorrectly and how we think it should be done right. But don't hesitate to have a bit of fun with this, guys. It's no holds are barred and nothing is off limit. So, thank you. Without further ado, I would love to introduce my great panel of VR developers and personalities. All of them you'll probably be familiar with or from our great VR community. My first guest is moderator of the Oculus subreddit and developer of the Half-Life 2 VR mod, WormSlayer. And my next guest is a technical artist and developer of Synthesis Universe, OlivierJT.
Hello, everyone.
And the next guest is the creator of MattStompz, a low-cost foot controller for hands-free virtual reality, Matt Carell.
What's going on?
And last but not least, we have the co-founder of Team Metatron and developer of VR chess, Nateight.
Pleasure to be here.
All right, all right. So I hope everyone is ready to have a good time. Grab your drink and let's discuss VR. So the first story I have has to do with VR controllers, and it's from the subreddit, and it's titled, "I think people may be disappointed with motion controllers." Okay, let me go ahead and read you what he posted here. People are getting very excited over the upcoming STEM Pre-VR and rumors that Oculus may be leveraging the DK2's tracking camera for handheld controllers. But input is only half the interaction equation. Without a suitable output, haptics, you will never be more than a ghost in a virtual environment. Without haptic feedback, you can only ever pretend to interact with a virtual object. So the technology seems fantastic, and having an avatar that responds to your movements is going to be great in aiding both presence and immersion, but temper your enthusiasm if you expect to be able to abandon your gamepad, keyboard, mouse, joystick, or other physical controller. You may be in for an unpleasant surprise. All right, guys, so that's the first topic. I want to go ahead and pass this over to, how about Matt? What do you think about this?
Great. I was hoping you'd call on me. This is near and dear to my heart. We're talking about, Pre-VR, STEM, and all of Oculus making a native input controller. One Redditor said, and I thought it was really smart, they need to take a progressive step. First, get the head-mounted display right. Virtual reality is sold by having great high resolution, great motion tracking, positional tracking. That's most important. Input is farther down the road, and that's where we're going. So first off, get the headset right. I mean, that's really all people care about initially. And then work on the input devices. Get your motion right, get your hands right, and then after that, then you can work on the haptics. So we're saying CV1, get the head-mounted display right, CV2, get the inputs right, and then finally CV3 and on, make it haptics.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Nate, what do you think about that?
Well, I've got a couple of controllers in the works myself, so I've dabbled a bit with the hardware stuff as just kind of an enthusiast. And
Right.
I think, like, Doc Ock made an excellent point in there, as he usually does, saying that the brain is actually capable of filling in a lot of these holes. So while it would be great to have a full-on haptic rig that does everything, you know, we might never have that. Haptics is such a challenge that, you know, even if you have something like a tactical haptics grip in your stem controller and you get that clang when you're swinging a sword and it hits a shield, well, you can still poke the sword through the shield. There's still going to be a mismatch until you have some kind of crazy exoskeleton rig. You know, the point that this poster was making, that aren't you just pretending? Well, it's VR. It's all kind of pretending. And the brain is really good at pretending. When you give it these visual cues, that's enough to really start tricking your brain into thinking that it is where it is not. And, you know, like Matt says, I think the roadmap is a solid one. There's a lot we can do with non-haptical technology. And, you know, down the road, we'll move into the better versions of all of this.
Yeah, no, I agree that makes sense, that order of operations, and, you know, what Doc Ock was saying about, you know, our brains will fill that in. I think that's, you know, definitely, that makes sense. Already experienced, you know, the Rift. My brain is filling in all kinds of data, and it's been fascinating to explore over the last year. Olivier, what do you think?
Yeah, it all goes to the step they're talking about. I mean, they imagine already experience where somebody in the game is going to pull a lever or push a button in game and will not feel it. And it's not going to work, that's for sure. But it's up to the game designer to try the best with what they can. You don't have to do some reality things. You can create your own reality where you don't actually need haptic feedback.
Mm-hmm. It's about the design of it, how you design everything, which is what, you know, comes down to user experience and user design. WormSlayer, you do a lot of design, and you know, you're the developer of Half-Life 2 mod. You must have something to say about this.
Yeah, I mean, these guys, they've already made a lot of good points here, but obviously we're big fans of haptic feedback. We were talking with the tactical haptics guys about adding support for their hardware in the Half-Life VR mod.
It's awesome.
But unfortunately that Kickstarter didn't succeed, so that's kind of on hold now. We're waiting to see what they do.
And I'm pretty sure they'll do something, and I will certainly throw my money at that.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
tech.
Yeah, I think that Nate here was absolutely right. I mean, when it comes down to it, if you want good haptics, you're going to be suspended from the ceiling like a puppet, wearing just a ton of metal, and that's the only real way that you're going to get that great, you know, haptical feedback. And it's going to look like a torture device, really. That's all you're hoping for. So that's great. Speculation's awesome. People can wish as much as they want to, but when it comes down to it, being realistic, especially here in the early days, that's the most important thing.
Yeah, maybe we'll save those big, huge rigs like that where you're suspended from the ceiling for porn. I think that would be a good application.
I think Japan's already on it.
Really? I wouldn't doubt it. All right, so
but
there was a couple
Gunter,
comments.
if I may add.
Yeah, sure.
You know, we are designing, it's a new reality. I mean, we all experienced Tuscany demo first without Hydra, and it was really cool.
Yeah.
Then we get our hands, and it was like a renewal. We could enjoy playing with the basketball or the baseball, and it's really something really cool. But I mean, we as a game designer, we have to make a new language. Like in the comment, the guy is saying like, how do you feel if it's heavy or light? In terms of game design, you can choose the language, saying, okay, if it's heavy, then you need 2 arms. If it's light, you need just 1 arm. Everybody needs to have a kind of language and communication. The first thing I really enjoy and haptic is too early. First, it's so much fun just to have our body inside VR. Look right now, everybody we have Hydra and we have fun just with hands. I cannot imagine in July when we are going to have just our body inside. Just that is going to be a really cool step.
And if I can
I'm really excited about that.
To echo that, as enthusiasts, yes, you probably should tamp your expectations somewhat. Okay, the people who show up in the subreddit and say, you know, I want to play Sword Art Online. Well, yeah, so do we. And you know, Sword Art Online was set in what, like 2024 or something. That's maybe realistic. As developers, I think it's very important to understand what the limitations of the current generation of technology are and play to them, not fight them, right? Like, if you're a developer, do yourself a favor and go in and put a raycasting laser dot in whatever engine you're using. And just look around an environment that you've built with a little dot and imagine what you can build, like what kind of game or experience you can build without any other controller than just the HMD. Okay, we're not going to have these crazy haptic rigs for a long time, if ever, but the technology that we do have is kind of amazing, and there is tons of stuff that we can do with it. So go right there first.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to have body language in 2 months. That's going to be so amazing in multiplayer first.
I can't wait. You know, here I am doing a show inside of virtual reality, and I can, you know, do this with you. We have bodies. It feels like you're here with me. There's positional audio. There's all kinds of stuff. Being able to suit up with pre-OVR and take it to another level, super exciting for sure. I wanted to read just a quick comment from Everyday VR, one of our good friends. He posted a comment there. Having played games like Half-Life 2 VR and Oculus Maximus and Crashland with the Rift Hydra, and that provide true one-to-one mapping of your hands, I can definitely say it adds a lot more to the experience. In fact, I would go so far as to say that even if you have no ability to use your hands to interact with anything at all, just being able to move them and see them where you expect them to be effectively resolves one of the big immersion breakers with the Rift. Virtual hands are also very effective in VR social applications for conveying a variety of body language. Haptics are important for the future, but motion controls are still very useful without them, which is exactly what you guys just said.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's doing it right, I would say. All right, why don't we go ahead and move on to the next discussion. Titled Controller Discussion, Are Advanced Haptics a Day One Requirement? So it's still more haptics, same tune. I guess I might be beating a horse to death here, so we can blow past this if it's a little bit too boring. But it was posted by Zalo, and says, since today seems to be the controller day, let me throw this out to you all. Are advanced haptics above and beyond Rumble a day one requirement? We've already answered that. I'm of the opinion that Rumble is fairly useless for, unfortunately, it's perceived as a basic requirement for controllers these days. I'm of the opinion that a solid, fast, accurate controller would work just fine without haptics. So it looks like, you know, this other topic really is leading right into that, and you know, I'm not sure if we really need to go further into that. Did you guys read that story and, you know, have any other thoughts on that, or basically we covered it?
I would actually kind of like to hijack this and twist it a little bit.
Let's do it.
A form of haptics, I guess, in a way, and a controller that I have cared about for a long time, and I know Matt in particular really cares about, is foot control. I think that's something that we haven't really explored fully, And I'd like to know, because in my eyes, having the feedback from pushing on some kind of foot controller or using like the stomps, actually lifting your legs up and walking around, that is a kind of haptics, because you are getting feedback from your foot pushing on the ground. You are getting feedback from your actual body. And I'm curious to know what the panel thinks about how necessary foot control is, whether it be some device that we already have seen, one that we can only imagine, how like the Omni and the virtualizer fit into this. That would be my question tying into all this.
Okay, well, we know that Matt has a lot to say about this, so I'm going to go to him last, and I'm going to start this with Worm.
Okay, well, we're planning on supporting the Virtuix Omni in our Half-Life mod, so we're definitely interested in the whole question of foot input, as it were.
Great.
It's the MattStompz thing is primarily a seated thing, I believe, and obviously that's a bit different from the Omni. Personally, I think ideally you want to be standing for any experience where your avatar is standing in the VR world. It helps with the sort of cognitive dissonance of not matching up with your body position and stuff.
That makes sense, absolutely. A lot of times when I was doing other Riftmax things and I was standing, I wanted to stand. Here I've got a nice cushy chair, and so it feels real and it feels appropriate, and I like it a lot. So I could see the foot controller that Matt's got being used in many applications, and I'm sure he'll go on to talk more about that. But before that, Olivier, what do you think?
Yeah, this post also was saying about having something for the day one, and it's a big problem as a developer, because I'm alone doing all the coding and the blueprint and all the stuff, and I back up STEM, I back up Omni, I back up PrioVR, and it's complicated because STEM is saying we have two options, which is 3-node, 5-node. PrioVR has 3 models with 7, 11, and 16 or 17 nodes, and I don't know how all things are going to interact together, because some people want to use PrioVR with STEM, which is you have your body with PrioVR and you use STEM for a sword, a gun, or maybe the Rift, because we still don't know if we can do 360, and it's so much things going all around, and we still don't have the SDK and from all these guys, so we don't know the possibility also yet. In terms of game design and interaction, we don't know what we are going to be able to do.
Yeah, there's a huge niche for some kind of middleware that takes all of these various input devices and kind of boils them down into a simple API that developers can use.
Yeah, I really hope it goes that way.
Yeah, that would be great. So Matt, what are your thoughts on this? You have a input device that's called Stomps. It's a foot controller for virtual reality. Tell us about it and tell us your opinions on this discussion that Nate brought up.
Okay, well, I appreciate the early plug, but I'd rather really not talk about my own thing. I think if you haven't seen it, you can look it up. It's actually going to change soon. What I'd like to talk about is the Omni and the Cyber. It was a great segue that you gave, Nate, because I really don't think that I want to be in a baby walker as an adult running around inside of my environment. So Cybereth did it a little bit better than the Omni did, where you have the option to sit down. That's key. The Omni, the bars get in the way every time. I'm sure if you're swinging your sword around in the virtual reality, you're going to break a forearm or a wrist. So that's another issue. But it is crucial. My controller, I actually worked on something similar to the Omni a long time ago, and I thought that it wasn't valid. but I didn't think anybody would want it. And in fact, when I tried to market it, everybody said it was a bad idea, just because exactly I just said. They don't want to harness around their crotch. Who wants to be wrapped up, with their dick pressed against their leg? Excuse me, but I really don't. So,
that's a concern.
Mine was, Olivier, he's got a big one. So my problem was I didn't want to, I wanted to get away from that. And that's kind of where mine came from. That was the genesis of Stomps, was how can I allow people to walk around in these environments without constraining them inside of that horrible structure. So that was kind of my idea.
Interesting.
It's a problem. It really is a problem, though. How to run around inside your virtual reality without smack bang running into a wall and breaking your nose.
Yeah, we
need big warehouse-sized rooms so we can have a big space to do redirected walking in and just do it for real holodeck style.
Yeah, but again, then you want to be able to sit down also, and how are you going to sit down at that point? That's another problem. So, I don't know. I think I have a solution, but I'm sure...
It's the ideal, but it's not realistic yet, is it?
That's true. So, I think...
The chair strapped to your ass. You can strap a chair to your back.
Yeah, I kind of put something...
on Reddit.
That was mine. Yeah, I put something on there for just basically a stripper pole that you slid around, and it kept you upright.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah.
I sometimes think of the level of VR right now as being very infantile, and that our vision, we're kind of waking up, and our vision's going to continue to open up and get clearer, and that maybe the Omni baby bumping, sitting in that thing kind of makes sense right now, that we do need to be kind of controlled and restrained if we want that kind of pleasure. But we also do have a chair. Maybe we want an Omni and a Stomps, depending on the experience we want to work at. And I mean, that means people are buying a lot of things, and I don't think all of that's perfect for consumers, but it's definitely a lot of people I think will try that out and see what works best and see what what's going on. All right, so shall we move on to the next topic?
If I can just say one more thing here, I think that the Omni in particular is going to wind up like the Wii fitness board, the balance board, just used occasionally after it had originally been purchased and then stuffed into a closet somewhere because it's just not an ideal experience. I think the Wii balance boards might actually come out of the closets because people are going to be able to use them seated or standing as just kind of a way to get another data point in whatever engine they're using, right? Like, you don't need to be running around
using the balance board.
It's going to become a VR peripheral, I think, and things like these slide mill controllers like the Omni, I'm glad people are excited about them, and I'm betting the first-party games are really good. Like the thing that Virtuix is actually putting together for the Omni is probably going to be a lot of fun. I don't know if other things are going to be fun.
Yeah, I would like to talk about that and hijack that just real quick, because I don't think the Wii balance board is really going to come out of the closet. And for another whole discussion, which is, why is this a desktop toy? Why is the HMD seated with a keyboard? I hate it. It should be a 360-degree experience. I should be able to look all the way around me and move all the way around, which is one of the benefits of the Omni and the Cyberith, is it turns it into a completely immersive environment. With the Wii, there's no way to make that a 360-degree device.
But please note, if you try to be a 360-degree device, you are essentially not using Oculus's first-party positional tracking solution. Okay, they're only going to give you one camera that works out of the box, and maybe people will hack up multi-camera rigs. But when you are saying, I demand to play this particular thing 360, you're also saying, well, I guess I also am not going to have positional tracking for the head. And if you're running around, I think that might present a usability problem. You know, that might make people sicker than not having it just seated in a chair.
Yeah, true.
All right, let's see what else we got on the agenda. Next topic, I thought this was really interesting, and it's a little bit change in tone, and it's how the Oculus Rift helped Roberta Furstenberg battle cancer. Have you guys seen this one? Of course you have.
Yeah, I remember this from when it happened.
Exactly. Posted by Lunny Alex Ditt, and it's an article from theriftarcade.com. And I'll try to read this faster so it's not so boring. Here we go. By the end of 2013, Roberta Furstenberg was losing her battle with cancer. After several months of radiation therapy and chemotherapy, she was told that the treatments were no longer effective. It was around that time that her daughter, Priscilla, a 2D and 3D game artist, moved in to help take care of her. Priscilla decided to record her grandmother's most cherished memories and stories. One night, Roberta revealed that an unusual dream she'd had where a future time-traveling version of Priscilla and her sister came to visit. They promised to take Roberta back into the future and cure her cancer using a time-traveling chair that would also enable her to explore and see the world once again. Roberta remarked how she missed the outside world, in particular how she could no longer step into her own yard. Her favorite pastime was caring for her garden. The next day, she found herself debating the next generation of consoles and her coworkers. Priscilla argued in her favor of the Oculus Rift. As I brought up more and more points about the Rift, it suddenly clicked that there might well have been a literal light bulb above her head. That night, I went out and on a limb and emailed the Oculus support and asked them for a Rift, and basically they were able to get her a Rift, and she was able to, you know, experience some outside scenery, Tuscany and all of that, and it was very beautiful. Now, you guys are familiar with the story. I'd like to hear your thoughts on this kind of application, and I'll start with Matt.
Okay, well, I've actually heard similar stories to this and just treatment of people with virtual reality. And basically, as far as pain levels goes, there's a threshold. The brain can only handle so much input. So after there is so much stimulus to the brain, positive or negative, it just cuts off the rest. So Howard Rose, he's the creator of, I think it's First Hand. He was talking about how they use it on burn victims while during physical therapy. Basically, they just put them into the Rift. It's so much stimulus, so much immersion that the brain, it just can't handle the whole amount of signals, and so it lessens the pain. And two, it tries and plugs in the environment that you're currently in to the pain. So if you're being attacked by, in that Snow World's case, snowballs being thrown by these snowmen, every time that they move your burned arm, you get struck by a snowball in that area, you think that it's the snowman's fault, and then you start wailing on them with your own snowballs.
Yeah, I remember that particular story. The granddaughter, she tracked me down on Reddit.
Really?
I commented on a YouTube video saying, hey, you should get the Oculus Street View app and show your grandmother.
Yes.
And it turns out that the Street View car had driven past her house while the woman had been in her garden. And yeah, apparently she really enjoyed seeing her garden and her old dog and stuff. It was...
Right, what's the coincidence that before she was gardening her dog and she turns around, sees the Google car run by, takes a picture, and that's what's there. And I don't think she had a clue that it was there, but in the Google Street View, yeah, she gets to see that.
Yeah, that was pretty
the VR mode, yeah. She was a little sad about it, I remember reading, which, you know, I can understand. You know, the dog was not alive anymore and all that.
Those
but
bittersweet things, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm sure she still was happy to have done it, for sure. Olivier, did you catch that story?
Yeah, I catch that story, but exactly what say about the penguin and the fire, the processing power of the brain. It's very interesting stuff. But it opened also some people are trying to treat PTSD for a long time using VR and arachnophobia and all that stuff. And it's very cool that today these guys, it was in a lab or in a psychotherapy and a little bit far away from everybody, but it's so cool that today we as users and regular people can enjoy the possibility that VR is going to give us, which is it's opening really new worlds to creation, and it can open the past for some other people who you record some stuff and you travel, and it's really, really nice.
Yeah, absolutely. I can think of another, these are like tools now. We're talking about helping people or, and helping make them, better. So one of the things that I liked was that speaking demo, and I had to get out there in front of the crowd, the virtual crowd that was all moving in random ways, and had the bright lights on me. I loved that because they were really bright and I felt it. And then there's some teleprompters, and I had to read what came through, which was the story of why this person developed it. So I thought that was creative, and I very much enjoyed reading that story. But I was nervous. And there was nobody there, and some people that's not they don't get nervous, but for people that do, I think that was a perfect way to practice. It's a tool. You certainly could use it. I don't know if much has been worked on with that since then. I haven't checked back in, but that was a great tool, and I think that kind of I like thinking about what VR can do as far as tools go. Anybody else have any thoughts on that? Nate?
I do. I think that anyone who believes that VR is primarily going to be remembered as like a gaming platform, and I say remembered, I think VR, once it is established, doesn't go away. I think it filters into so many elements and reshapes so many industries that I think medicine, as a really good example, is something that could be transformed in every way, from every angle.
Yeah.
Okay, you can have doctors walking through a patient's virtual body to diagnose them. You can have a VR or AR system in the operating room, assisting the doctors with a surgery. While the patient is convalescing, you can have a VR rig on their head because, like Matt says, he hates that it's a seated experience right now. Well, if you're in a hospital bed for 6 months, I don't think you really care that you can't run around in an Omni or something.
Sure.
So it's, there are huge challenges in each one of those. And it's going to be really interesting to see how all of that rolls out. But I think, 10, 20 years down the road, there isn't much in the world that couldn't at least be affected by VR in some way.
Real quick, Nate, I'm a huge advocate of the seated experience. Just wanted to throw that in there.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of us, what Worm, you were saying, depends. If the game is standing, then you need to be standing. But if it's a seated cockpit type, experience, then it should be seated. And I think it makes sense. I mean, the best practice guides talk about, to start the seated experience. I think that makes sense. This is a seated experience essentially right now, and it's working quite well. I'm not getting sick, but I don't think I'm a good test subject because I've been in these things for too many hours. On the doctor thing, I just made me think of like Watson, that like Jeopardy computer, and now they want to use it in the medical field. Basically having a virtual doctor that you visit too, like to talk with in this sort of VR, and you tell them what's up, and they give you a decent, feedback. I don't know why right now you need to go into VR to do that, but I could see that happening, and there'd be more reasons. Maybe, again, it's measuring you with virtual your gear basically to help get more data, and then you can get diagnosis from virtual Watson. So
God help the hypochondriacs, right? Like people who go on WebMD all the time and worry about how they've got every kind of disease. Now they can do it in VR.
Yeah, I'd like to speak on that for a second. One of the cool things that I've seen is an overlay where they put all of the sensors on your own body, your heart sensor. They even take an MRI of your brain, and you can watch your synapses fire. And then they let you experience it from the first person. You look down at your torso that's, skin's been removed. You can watch all of your organs, and it makes you focus on the body, your heartbeat, and your health. And I'd imagine that's very disturbing to see, but it seems pretty cool, like a good idea to let you actually be health conscious by viewing your body and what might be wrong with you.
That does sound cool.
Basically, VR is just the ultimate, extension for humanity, in my opinion. It's just, we will be able to take everything that we do, extend it into VR, at least for prototyping purposes, and do a lot of things that we couldn't, have superpowers, that sort of thing. So here we are, people across the world in our audience, at our guest panel. We have the UK, we have France, we have
California,
West Coast, yep, California, East Coast,
Japan,
and we have Japan here, and more. So that's a huge extension. I mean, the internet gives us that, but now I feel like I'm around you guys, and we're having a show now, so it's pretty rad. All right, next topic. This is kind of an old one that I had laying around, but I wanted to talk about Technolust and the Kickstarter. So what do you guys think about it, and how excited are you?
It's cool.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
What parts do you like about it? What blew your mind, or kind of blew my mind?
Well, I've always been a huge fan of sci-fi and cyberpunk and that kind of thing, and even though it's still a relatively rough demo with placeholder art and stuff, they've captured the feel of it very well. The whole sort of future corporate reality was very convincing, very well woven.
I think it was Riath who posted a topic that was at least tangentially about Technolust, asking, are we going to see a resurgence in old-style adventure gaming? I've had some conversations with people about, I can't even remember exactly what they're called in Japan, but basically object recognition games that are about finding a particular object in a room or something in the same way that you might on one of those old Scum LucasArts games. It's all about going and getting a thing that you plug into some other thing and having the right conversation path with an NPC. That whole genre kind of died out. And I think there are a lot of people who are really sad to see it go. Right, in VR, I think all of a sudden that becomes a really viable thing, and I think Technolust is going to be one of the first games to prove that.
That's a great point. There was a comment from Cautionator. Just when you think it's safe to stop kickstarting things, well, do me proud, Kickstarter number 84. I think it's an addiction or something.
Yeah.
That's how it feels a little bit for me, too.
Yeah, I'm sure there isn't a single person here who hasn't broken the bank kickstarting things recently.
Well, hopefully it comes around full circle for everybody. I think everybody kind of is developing something for Oculus. I think that's one of the main draws of it, is that they kind of opened it up, made it open source for the community, left it with almost no content, and everybody wants to get their foot in the door somehow. And that's how that's the avenue. Kickstarter is the way to kind of make it.
Yeah. I mean, let's talk about Kickstarter for a little bit. Nathan, you've gone on a little bit. I know you have some, opinions there. You mind starting that off?
Well, crowdsourcing is a huge deal because it does enable things that were previously impossible or at least impractical, or that some, person holding purse strings somewhere deemed impossible or impractical. I don't think we would have, the Rift, I don't think we would have any of this were it not for Kickstarter and crowdsourcing in general. Because, it's still kind of darkly hilarious to me that the Morpheus Sony HMD came out when and how it did. Because I've been begging Sony for years, please God, you guys have Samsung in your back pocket. You have billions of dollars of technology, and you're one of the only companies in the world still doing research. Please God, please, can you just build an HMD that isn't an HMZ or an HMZ T1, like not just a media viewer? Can you please, Sony, do VR? And it takes a 20-year-old kid in his garage and a bunch of Kickstarter backers to prove to the world that, hey, this should be a thing. And, Sony says, okay, well, I guess we'll do that then. When, they really could have pulled that technology out of thin air anytime in the past 5 or maybe even 10 years. So, thank you to everyone who kickstarted the Rift and continues to pour money into these games, because until the Facebook acquisition happened, there really wasn't a way to get VR content built. And, we are all kind of doing that together, and that's what makes this community so great and what makes it feel so good to be on any side of that equation.
Yeah, it's an interesting point about, without Kickstarter, we probably wouldn't have all this, and it's just interesting how it takes that and a cell phone screen, and now we're starting to talk about, hey, we can get VR going. It's like, whoa. And just now we're all excited. Here we are starting to do it. So still, thoughts on Kickstarter, rest of the panelists?
Well, Quickstarter is difficult to reach for friends developer, so there are other options, and I wish things were easier to get into Quickstarter, I think. Yes, I look forward to what was saying Oculus regarding that now they have some money, they want to hire people to take care of developer relation and probably publishing. So I hope it's going to be a real possibility for us developer, even internationally, another option to Quickstarter.
Yeah, it really helps us a lot, and it definitely, for us starting out developing, I mean, that's a great way for us to make it work, because going up against, the man or whatnot, not doing it crowd sourcing, I don't know how I'd be able to get to that point, so it's a good point. Anybody else have anything on the Kickstarter?
Just that it's what you were talking about. Venture capitalists is the other method, or angel investors. Yeah, and it's just like you said, you're at their mercy. Nate was talking about that earlier, and it basically kind of puts you in a situation not unlike what Oculus is in now with a daddy. Now you got a daddy who's dictating your every move. And you don't have as much control. With Kickstarter, you're in control, and the only people who are going to have any sway over you are your backers, and that's just the community. And what better position could you be in? So Kickstarter, I mean, crowdfunding, such a wonderful thing.
I wonder though, so now you're in control, and that means now you got to make all the decisions, and you've got to do it all, and so that could be a little challenging in itself. So maybe some help and team is worth it. I've never gone to those levels, so it'll be interesting to do that, and you guys are doing that, and we'll, as we have more conversations and we're part of this community, it'll be interesting to learn about it. And so, things like Technolust and other ones are showing us, what it's like, and of course Oculus. So.
Well, what's cool is it makes all of us the angel investor, and I think that's what's awesome. Is everybody gets to choose who's worthy of being backed. It's pretty cool.
It is, yeah. It's so awesome. I mean, look at Star Citizen with like $50-something million raised, crowdsourced for that game. That's amazing.
It's up to about 4 million or something.
What'd you say, Worm?
It's up to about 43 million last time I checked.
43? Okay. I had a different rate of inflation, so. And Olivier, you were going to say something.
Yeah, the quick starter is cool for the designer that have been around for a long time and have a reputation. But a lot of people doing quick starter are struggling, and when you see they ask for money, they ask $30,000, $25,000, and that goes really fast, really quick. So it's difficult to create a whole project for that low money.
That's why it's a Kickstarter and not a final funding.
Yeah.
What was that?
That makes sense too.
Laser behind you.
Ghost in the machine.
How we doing?
Okay, so we are low on time, and I want to do a couple things. Do some plugs if we need to. Guests, you are allowed to plug anything you want. So, Worm, have I already plugged you enough? Anything you want to talk about?
No, I'm good.
Any new updates?
VR references.
I'd kind of like
When's
to plug a
Half-Life
little.
3 coming out? Could you let us know right now, please? Thanks.
I could tell you, but then I'd have to kill you all.
It's for
Lightsaber.
Good answer. Olivier, any updates to Synthesis Universe? Anything new there?
Well, not really, but the news is I would like to come to SVVR in May, so I hope I can meet as much people as possible. Probably you, Gunter, and Worm. I know you're in UK, but yeah, I'm gonna travel end of May to meet everybody. It's gonna be fun, I hope.
I'm in Florida, so I won't be able to hang out with you, but you know, I can't wait to hear, you know, meet up with you and hear about it. Matt, anything to plug? Perfect.
Yeah, I think we already got me. I have a foot controller. I just created a new update. Check me out, stompsvr.com, stomps with a Z. Yeah, that's also I'm doing a podcast. Let's do, how about podvr.blogspot.com. I'm just starting out with Brian Bellardo, and we're just trying to find any way to get into the community, which is what I'm doing here, why I'm sitting around this virtual table.
It sounds good. I listened to 2 episodes today on a commute, and it was great. So keep it up.
Thanks, man.
And last but not least, Nate, what do you got to plug?
I guess all I'd say is that we are going to do an actual full-on release of the Metatron VR website very soon. And hopefully as part of that, we'll also be kind of opening up the Unreal Engine 4 shooter game experiments. If anyone wants to come and pitch in and add some features or play around with a way to control an FPS avatar in VR, we're definitely going to be encouraging people to do that, you know, come in and tackle a task and sort of try to use that as a community test bed. So keep your eyes peeled for those 2 developments coming soon.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm also a member of Team Metatron, which we announced last Sunday on Bruce's stream. Very proud. I've been hanging out with Nate and many of the other teammates, and this all sort of started on Minecraft, on the Metacraft server. Worm's a mod there. He was a mod there from, I think, the beginning or close to the beginning. Nate's now a mod, and VR Social really happened there first for a lot of us, and it was awesome. And we love all these social experiments and places and experiences that we have now for us. So we want to see more, and we're definitely, you know, part of all that. And just to plug myself, I did the metatronvr.com website, and I'll be doing more updates, getting the forums all solid, and so it's been, you know, good to have this kind of work to do. And now this show, I love talking to all you guys, and I think this format's going to work really well. We'll be doing it weekly. That ties into one more plug, which was Cymatic Bruce was graciously allowed me to come on his show on last Wednesday, on his Talk VR show on Wednesdays. It's really late, it's like at this time, and it's great. And he allowed me to plug this show. And if you want to see what Gunter looks like, what I look like, take a look at that episode, which is not up on hitbox.tv/cymaticbruce yet, but I imagine it will be there over the weekend. Hitbox takes a few days for things to publish, so take a look at that. I think though on Cymatic Bruce's YouTube he has it there. So that's that, and now I want to open it up to audience for questions. think we have a question over here from Everyday VR. Please.
Yep. Hi. So it was. You guys can hear me all right?
Yes.
Yep.
Sound great.
Yeah. So my question was sort of a comment about the earlier discussion about haptics, and I was thinking that there are some sort of arcade-style interfaces for which you can do haptics with resistance and have it all kind of work. For example, if you have, say, a wheelchair interface where there's machinery to induce resistance on the wheels as you turn them, then you can have that integrate with an environment. You can have a bicycle that has resistance on the wheels that integrates with an environment and where turning the bicycle turns it in VR and so on and things like that. Are those things generalizable? Like, are those part of how haptics will be solved, or do you think those are just for specialized applications, or what?
Yeah, I think we kind of covered that a little bit. Was that having a full-on general haptics rig is going to be a lot of hardware, or it's going to be some sort of technology that we're not familiar with yet, like audio waves or something like that. Even in Ready Player One, I think he was wearing a full-body haptic suit inside of this huge haptic rig. So I don't think that it's practical.
Yeah, he would wear it all day, and then the worst part of Parzival's day was to have to shower and get out of VR.
I think that Dee's point about force feedback, as it was once called, like you have steering wheels and joysticks and a lot of existing PC peripherals that do give you that sense of resistance that can be tied into a game engine. I think that is something that we will see at least a small resurgence in, just because those things work okay when you're disconnected from the game and looking at it on a monitor. But when you have a wheel that you're steering with in a virtual game, and it actually responds in the way that it should, when you have a joystick that is giving you force feedback in Star Citizen or something, like I don't know that we're going to see some things like the gun force feedback with the magnetic coils in them and whatnot, like that could be problematic. Use cases kind of differ for a lot of things, but I do think largely that the way that the PC market has solved the force feedback problem is going to be very useful for a lot of specific games.
I agree. I think that the quick answer every day to your question is going to be, it's going to be specialized. You're going to see specialized equipment for haptics. William Provancher's tactical haptics is as close as I've seen to general hand haptical feedback with his servo sliders. It makes, a sword, a gun, all of those things can feel realistic, but when you're talking a full body experience, no, it's going to be specialized. You could ride a bike, that's fine. You could have a pedal and a brake, that's fine, but a general rig is just too much.
Sure. Thanks for the question. All right, and I think we have one more question on this side by a piece of fruit.
Hi. I was wondering, guys, if you look at games like you mentioned earlier, talking about Technolust, there's a lot of interactable games out there where it's sort of looking at items and picking things up, or at least that's the plan. And I'm wondering, as you know, everything feels very tactile and you want to touch and pick up everything, but that's not really very feasible to have every single item in a game interactable. So what do you think the overhead or responsibility is for a developer, and what consumers would expect in terms of interactability with items in a game would be?
I think Olivier was talking about that a lot, was how game developers can kind of develop around it. Similar to that redirected walking, you could have something like where you can actually, avoid picking things up, I guess, but he'd probably have a better answer.
Yeah, it's probably like going to be baby steps in terms of gameplay and game design and the interaction I'm designing for Synthesis Universe are not going to be pickable stuff and things like that. It's going to be like for example, you have imagine a machine, and then you just slide your hand through it, like a holographic or something, where you just when you wash your hand and it's the automatic light thing. I'm moving toward that kind of gameplay.
Just turns on.
Yeah, I'm moving toward that kind of gameplay more than I have to pull a lever or pull a wheel or grab something, because we're gonna have collision and it's gonna be very, very not cool.
That is a great answer. Just interaction without touching. That's a good solution.
Yeah, and it's, the games that are going to be popular are the games that are going to work really well in VR, and the games that are going to work really well are going to be the game that use what you have right now in terms of interaction. Everybody is praising the seated experience with the ship simulation, and this is going to work amazingly well.
Exactly, you've got to play to the strengths of the current hardware.
Yeah, and I work in the creative field. I'm a designer as well as a front end developer for web, and a lot of times restraints and limitations is actually a good thing. It allows me to be creative and find a solution, and like that works better than what I would have done if I had free reign or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. What I'm designing, also because I'm alone, I'm doing everything with that in mind, in terms of production, in terms of modeling and everything. I don't have any texture in my universe, and I prefer working with shading, with flat polygon that I love so much, and lighting, and no texture, because it takes time, and I don't care about having a character and have the little beard, the hair, and everything. It's not. You don't need that to express emotion and feeling and story.
Yeah, it makes sense. I like flat vector design in web. It's simple, it's clean, it scales, it makes sense, it works. I'm glad that's where the trend is now. So that makes sense to me in that kind of world. So yeah.
Minimalist. To tie this up, and those are all some very great points. I think to directly answer a piece of fruit's question, what people will expect from a game that is all about interacting with an environment is they will expect full interaction. They'll expect everything in that world to be a thing that they can pick up, and a can is something that they can crush in their hand. And whenever you encounter something in a virtual world that doesn't interact in the way that you expect it to, your immersion can be immediately broken by that. So it's definitely a challenge, particularly because of what Olivier is saying, that when you're just a solo developer, trying to add interactivity to every element in your world is pretty much impossible. So you have to maybe scale things down, you have to build a different kind of game, you have to direct users to the things that are interactable. I'm not sure there's a good solution to that particular problem yet, but it's something that every developer is going to struggle with.
Yeah, you have to pick your battles.
Exactly. Yeah, it's exactly that. If you put somebody here, if we had cup on the table, we would like to interact with it. But if you are in another universe with another set of language, of communication, of interaction with things around you, then you have to learn everything again. And VR is going to be really interesting when you are entering a world and you don't know how it's going to work. How do I interact with this? And it's all related to game design and how you are going to bring this new experience to the player and how he's going to relate to what he can do. If you put everything to reality, yes, I want to play with that arcade game over there, but I can't. And so if it's there, you need to put that.
Yeah, actually, I went up to, Joust, and I simulated, just because for fun I like to do that. I know I can't play it, and I'm not expecting it really because I know what's up here. But I did go over there and try to mimic, holding the joystick and tapping the button repeatedly and whatnot. So, but you're absolutely right. All right, any last thoughts? What's up?
I was just going to say, I mean, already you have asset stores where people model things like the arcade cabinet, and I expect that functionality will just be another aspect of that. You know, you'll download your cabinet and it will actually be functional when you go over to it and interact with it.
Oh, I know. Can't wait.
Let's hope.
Well, all right. This has been great. So I guess that about wraps it up for Virtually Incorrect this week. Keep your virtual channel on this dial and join me next week for more VR discussion. Guests are not finalized next week, but Rev has filled the first seat. Who will be the next? Ping me on Reddit. I'm at Gunter444 if you have something interesting to bring to the show and would like to be a guest. Big thank you to all of my guests, my great audience. Thanks to Mike and Kane for producing and hosting the show. And I bow to Roger Essig for the awesome backdrop that he provided. I love your work, man. All right, so see you next time, every pony. I mean, what did you say?